The Amazulu nation are anticipating the address from King Misuzulu for this year's King Shaka Day commemorations, and there are calls for the king to urgently consider appointing a new prime minister following the passing of Prince Mangosuthu. And as the country celebrates National Heritage Day in KwaMashu tomorrow, the Zulu nation is expected to descend to KwaDukuza Stadium for the king's address, and we're joined by Siphamandla Goge. Good afternoon again, Siphamandla. Earlier on, we have a very rich history lesson and giving us context about the significance of this day, particularly where the Zulu nation have now gathered in anticipation of the king's address. So what's happened since then?
Well, nothing much except that more and more people are flocking or trickling to KwaDukuza. They are coming here to listen to the King's address at this year's commemoration of Umkhosi Welembe, King Shaka's Day. My colleague Francois Robla will show you some of the people who are here. A large chunk of Amabuto has left this venue to go to the graveside to welcome Amazulu King Misuzulu Kazwelithini and come with him to this venue. So there are Amabuto, the maidens, Abo Mama, Isdombi, and just general members of the public that are here, because all these elements make up a nation, and all of them, they are here to listen to Amazulu King Misuzulu Kazwelithini, basically highlighting the importance of this Umkhosi Welembe, popularly known as King Shaka's Day before it was renamed the Heritage Day. The national event or the national commemoration will be held at KwaMashu, Princess Makoko Stadium tomorrow, to be addressed, of course, by government authorities and officials. That's the national event. But here in KwaZulu-Natal, KwaDukuza, this is what is currently happening with members of Amazulu Nation, members of the Zulu royal family, and just, general public who have come here to listen to the king of the Zulu nation as he will be addressing. I see here things are taking shape. The chair of the king and the queen already being placed here, preparing for the arrival of the king and the queen. As you see, members of the royal family that are here in front of me, Abantwana baseNdlunkulu, and on the other side, invited guests and other members of the Zulu royal family. They are here also to listen to the speech by the king of the Zulu nation. There are other high-profile guests and prominent members that are here, as we will show you that the former premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, is also here. Dr. Mkhize is sitting this side as we see preparations underway here. Just final touches. We are awaiting the arrival of the king. The former premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Dr. Zweli Mkhize, who has attended and addressed a lot of such events and gatherings here, and he had worked for a very long time with the later Amazulu king, Zwelithini Zulu. So this is the current situation here at KwaDukuza as we await the arrival of King Misuzulu Zwelithini to address this year's Umkhosi Welembe, which is basically known as King Shaka's Day. Why is it important? Simply because King Shaka is regarded as the founder of the nation. Before him, Zulu tribe was just a small, some people say insignificant tribe, but when he took over, he basically conquered other tribes and other clans to form a mighty and powerful Zulu nation, which is respected globally today because of his, decision to conquer and form one strong Zulu nation. That's why it's called the nation today. But before him, 200 and something years ago, there was just a small Zulu tribe. So today the king will touch on King Shaka's legacy, but also talk about the future of the Zulu nation. Many people expect him to touch on his plans to fill the vacancy that has been created by the demise of his traditional prime minister, that is Prince Mangosuthu. So we expect that he may touch on that, perhaps tell the nation when and how he will decide to fill that vacancy, because there are growing calls for him to fill it, not to have a vacuum in that position that has been occupied by Prince Mangosuthu, who had served 3 kings, including King Zulu, King Zwelithini, as well as the current monarch of the Zulu nation. Francois will show you just the wide of this tent and this or rather the wide of this stadium here. As more and more people are still outside, we are told that there have been some technical or rather delays with public transport that is transporting people to come to this stadium in Gwaduguza. Other people are still outside the stadium. Others are making their way here. Others would have started at the gravesite because that's where there will be a brief ceremony. The king will basically preside over that brief ceremony at the gravesite of King Shaka. After that, he will make his way down to this stadium where he will address this year's Umkhosi Welembe.
And Siphamandla, I mean, there's obviously a lot of logistics that goes into making an event of this magnitude a success. Not only, as you were saying, the transportation of many revelers who would want to attend this event. It's also issue around the coordination of Amabuto and what the royal family protocols are as well. Can you talk us through that?
Indeed, it takes a lot of time to prepare for such an event. But, you know, this year's event, I must say that there has been some confusion because at some point many people thought this year's event was not going to take place because the national event is being commemorated tomorrow in KwaZulu-Natal. So therefore, there was confusion as to what was going to happen regarding Umkhosi Welembe. Yes, what is happening tomorrow is known as the Heritage Day, but this year's event or this event where we are currently is known as Umkhosi Welembe, simply put, King Shaka's Day. So there were those who were saying it may be a duplication to have this event today and then tomorrow there is another event which is led by the national government. And then some people within the royal family and the nation said there was no way you could cancel Umkhosi Welembe because the Zulu nation is what it is today because of King Shaka. It is reported that he passed away or he was killed by his own brothers on the 24th of September. But King Misuzulu decided that this year's celebrations or commemoration will be on Saturday. It has always been the case. Even when King Zwelithini was still alive, they would usually have it on a Saturday, if of course the Sunday is on the 24th, but they would prefer to have it on a Saturday for simply those logistics that you spoke about. There are people from across the province that will flock to Gwaduguza to commemorate this day. So you need to transport people from, you know, the east, the west, the north and the south to come to Gwaduguza. And Saturday ideally works for all those who would come here to attend such an event. And today it coincides, by the way, with King Misuzulu's birthday. He's celebrating his birthday today on the 23rd. So it's going to be an interesting one for him in particular, even though he has addressed Umkhosi Welembe before, but it was at a small scale. It was during COVID-19 and it's not been the same since the days of COVID-19. Because remember, there were no public gatherings. After that, there was the royal dispute over the throne. So his first Umkhosi Welembe was not widely attended because there was still some confusion within the royal family, and government had decided to freeze financial support for the royal household and the king. So the first one he addressed was privately funded, simply because a decision was taken that there is no way it will not be commemorated. Hence today then you see that at least there is a decent crowd that is here. It's not the same. It's not compared to what used to be before COVID-19 and when King Zwelithini was still alive. But I guess what has led to the confusion was the issue of this event that is taking place tomorrow. Many people were doubtful that today was going to happen. But we are here now. It's happening. It's all systems go. As you can see that everything has been laid out perfectly for the king to arrive. He's with Amabuto. As soon as he arrives in Gwaduguza, he will be welcomed by Amabuto. They will go to the gravesite of King Shaka and make their way down to address this commemoration at the stadium.
Yeah, but throughout the years, the number of the commemoration events that you've attended, Siphamandla, even under the late King Zwelithini, I think is also the fact that we are in a global village, that it's not just about the preservation of Zulu culture, the heritage, and the Ingonyama Trust. And, you know, it also permeates around, you know, to the rest of South Africa and the world as well.
Indeed, for instance, there is a heightened debate about this Umkhosi Welembe. Those who are on the other side of the debate are saying, listen, we are one South Africa, we are one nation. If we commemorate something, let's all of us commemorate as South Africans. There shall be no Zulu, Pedi, Tsonga, Venda, Botswana or Xhosa. Let's just be all one South African nation. On the other side, you've got those who are saying, listen, we are one nation as a country, but you still have different nations that would want to commemorate, celebrate and preserve their culture, heritage and their traditions, values and the ways of doing life. So what is happening currently, I guess those who are on the other side of the debate advocating for such, events to continue taking place will say you can't talk about AmaZulu as a nation without King Shaka's day. So therefore, it's important to commemorate it. Those who are on the other side of the debate and the fence, they will say yes, but after 1994, we became one nation. So therefore, no matter what happens, let's all commemorate together. So I guess it's the question of being united in diversity. At the same time, we are part of the global village, but also within South Africa, you've got various nations that will be commemorating and celebrating their culture and heritage. So it's something that will continue to happen as long as it brings social cohesion, as long as it unites African nations and everyone in South Africa. I guess that will be welcomed because all nations have a right to celebrate and commemorate their culture, their heritage and their traditions. The Constitution prescribes for that to happen. The question for me will be, how does it enhance social cohesion? How does it ensure that nations within South Africa are united?
Yes, and Siphamandla, the thing about the sustainability, especially when it comes to the government funding, that in itself has created much debate and controversy as to why it has to come from the fiscus. And over the years, if memory serves, there had been other interventions or partnerships that the Zulu nation had then embarked on to sustain not only their own upkeep, but also the development goals and programs within KZN.
Well, I guess that will continue to be the debate to say how do we deal with ensuring that during this difficult economic climate, you try and save every cent you have, because let's be realistic, the fiscus cannot afford extravagance. Fiscus cannot afford a situation whereby there is wastage. So in the past, there have been controversies around the funding of royal ceremonies, but those who defend such ceremonies and events will always argue that these are budgeted for, these are catered for. There is a royal budget, a budget from the royal household that is there to cater for such, and also public-private partnerships are welcomed, because in the past there have been business people and just business organizations that have contributed in funding such royal ceremonies, because the fiscus will never be in a position to have enough financial resources to cater for all royal ceremonies. There's quite a number of them. Umkhosi Welembe is one of them. You also have the Reed Dance ceremony in September. So September being the heritage month for AmaZulu as a nation, you have two key royal ceremonies, being the Reed Dance, which is attended by thousands of maidens, and you have Umkhosi Welembe, which is also important because it's about the founder of the nation. So I guess the fiscus will always, have some struggles with accommodating and catering for such. However, the provincial government will always say there is money that is set aside for such royal ceremonies, and they are budgeted for. So therefore, it's not a crisis in a sense that every financial year a budget for the royal household is set aside. Remember that 70 million that you always hear about AmaZulu King getting such allocation. Well, part of it funds such ceremonies. So it's not that it goes directly to the pocket of the king. Most of it goes to paying for staff salaries who work for the king's office. It pays for such royal ceremonies that have got to do with preservation of culture and heritage of AmaZulu nation.
Yeah. Yeah, Sipha, we're going to have to leave it there. Siphamandla Goge, eNCA reporter out at KwaDukuza Stadium, where King Misuzulu is expected to address the nation in a short bit. As and when that event kicks off, we'll definitely cross to it.